So on the Embody podcast today, we have Antonio Torres. Antonio, thanks so much for joining. What's been the biggest changes or the biggest things that you've realized from when you pre-teacher to engaging a teacher?
That's actually a difficult question for me to answer because although my current teacher has not been my teacher for a very long time, I've had teachers and mentors and coaches throughout my entire life. Like whether it was wrestling or jujitsu or rock climbing, I had these people that I relied on to help guide me. But when I was starting and trying to get a more general perspective, I didn't have a teacher for this general perspective. And I think what I tried to do when I didn't have a teacher is I tried to juggle so many different things. And it ended up being I didn't make a lot of progress at anything. Or the things that I did make progress at, I would have made progress doing anything because I was talented at it. For example, the two-arm handstand was something I can say I was talented at. I didn't need to go through all of the steps that everyone else did. I learned it very quickly. But for mobility, for strength, for locomotion, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just reading this book, watching this video, and everyone's speaking about the different things and different methods that work. And there's research articles that you can read that have conflicting information from really good sources on either of them. And it was really hard to distinguish the good from the bad.
What's been your experience with developing processes for your own students? And the hardest thing is to decide which one first, which one second, which one third, and which one not to put in at all, which progression, which movement. Do you have ways of thinking or concepts around like tools that help you think about that process design element?
It definitely depends on the time commitment from the student, because that'll dictate a little bit of the process. It'll depend on what they want to learn. That'll depend on the starting point, any injuries that they have, any weaknesses, and we'll go around that. But there is a general from point A to point B, but sometimes we need to adjust and take lines out of the B and put them here and move around. So I do have a general process to take them through, and the process has been generated from how I've learned, but also I learn differently than person X. So I've had to come up with little things to help them learn, especially in online coaching, because if we're in-person coaching, I can kind of see what you're doing right there and give you the immediate action. But if we're online, there's a slight lag between what you're doing and what I'm seeing. And that's something that I've been developing, a better way to communicate what I want in this online platform as the world has closed down a little bit and we've had to resort to a lot of online group classes, a lot of online coaching. And
in terms of your story up to now, I'd like you to give us a kind of checkpoint history of your practice in terms of what did your practice look like in checkpoints up until now? And then second part is lay out the path for the next 2-3 years in terms of your practice and your teaching as you may see it or as you may envision it.
From ages 1 to 7, I was very active, especially outside. My mother was a dance teacher. She did ballet and hip hop. So when I was younger, I would take her ballet classes. I would take her hip hop classes. I even remember when I was about 3, 4, 5 years old, I was in one of her performances. And in my memory, what I did was I kicked up to handstand and I walked across the floor. But in reality, what I probably did was I kicked up to handstand and fell on my back. I grew up with some dance and some foundation there. I definitely was not good at all in ballet or hip hop. And then when we moved to Ohio, my mom was a little bit worried that during the winter time I would become this sloth inside the house. And she really thought that being active, being physical was really important. So we started to look around what kind of sports or activities could I join into. And I wasn't really into basketball or American football or anything like this. But what I really liked at that time was something called WWF. Now it's called WWE, the World Wrestling Federation. I really liked that. So my mom thought, okay, why don't we try real wrestling, the old wrestling where you folk style wrestling. So at 7 years old, I started folk style wrestling, and I did that for 10 years until I was 17. So I had a huge background in this art. And if you've ever done wrestling before, one of the things that they try to do is break you in every single class. They want you to break down because they only want to keep the strongest people. So I think that's where I started to get some of my attitude towards just keep going and never kind of give up, this kind of attitude. I think that's where it started. And then during the end era of wrestling, around when I was probably 14 years old, so about 7 years into wrestling, I started to lose interest in wrestling because I had been doing it for so long. I really wasn't that good. My team was awesome, but I was not very good. So I was trying to find what else could I do to fill this empty void that I was feeling in my physicality. And I came across parkour. And I think this is where parkour became really popular on the internet. So what I did at that point is we created a group of people that wanted to do it, and we were going to parks, going to here and there, and doing whatever we could. We were learning vaults, we were learning climb ups on the wall, we were learning flips. And then through this practice, I realized, okay, I want to start learning how to do a backflip because that could help my parkour. I want to learn how to do a front flip, but if I learn it on the grass or in my house, I might hurt myself. So what can I do? And at that time, I found a gymnastics, I guess, facility, and they taught a tumbling class. And I was around like 15 or 16 at that time. And the tumbling class would teach you like round offs, back handsprings, backflips, these sort of things, exactly what I was looking for. So I entered the class. And at that time, I was an extremely shy person. And in the class, it was all girls, and I was the only guy. And all the girls were like 4 years younger than me. And I was this giant guy because I've always been bigger than all of my classmates in terms of like, I guess, girth and height. And it just made me feel very uncomfortable. But through that uncomfortability, I gained some confidence in myself. And through the tumbling, I learned how to do a standing back tuck, front tuck, round off back handspring back tuck, like all of these basic tumbling attributes. And the coach at the tumbling class saw that I was picking up things very quickly and that I was attentive in the class. And he had a cheerleading team at the gymnastics facility. And he had asked, would you like to try out for the cheerleading team? And I said, absolutely not. And I went home. And then my mom talked to me and she said, actually, I think this would be good for you to try. Why don't you just go to one class and see how it is? And I was like, oh, okay, fine. And I went to the class, again, pretty much all girls with like 3 guys in there. And immediately everyone was so nice and trying to help me and asking me about myself. And I made a lot of friends that very first day. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna try this cheerleading thing. And I did cheerleading for 3 years, despite everybody talking about how I guess girly it was and how no guys did that. I didn't care. I had fun in there, and I was learning to flip. I was learning to throw girls in the air and catch them. And through the cheerleading, we actually went to what's called Worlds. It's the World Championship of Cheerleading. And we got to compete at the world stage. Now, we did not win or even get 10th place, but we got to compete, which was an awesome thing to actually do. And then when I got to college, they had a cheerleading team as well. I tried out for it, I made it. And then I realized that this cheerleading team and the one that I was on previously are totally different. The college one, they were a club that wanted to be together, drink together, party together, and do this, versus actually training, actually getting better. So I immediately left that camp and started to find other areas. So around this time, I found jiu-jitsu, and I found jiu-jitsu and rock climbing. And I got really into both of these disciplines. I was rock climbing basically every day, doing jiu-jitsu every day. And through these 2 disciplines is when I started teaching. After about 2 years of doing jiu-jitsu, 2 years of doing rock climbing, I started teaching how to rock climb, how to lead climb, how to boulder, how to do this. And then in the jiu-jitsu, I started teaching some basic jiu-jitsu techniques. And I really have to thank my teacher at the time, Chris Hoy, who saw that I was so interested in practicing and teaching, that he gave me the chance to be in front of people and start to teach even at a lower level. And I think that's what really started my interest in teaching, was through that discipline. And then this overlapped into rock climbing, and I started rock climbing more and more, going outside. We have two really famous places by us, the Red River Gorge and the New River Gorge. They're really famous places for outdoor rock climbing. People come from all over the world just to climb there, and they're really close to where we're at. So I went there a number of times and really started to love this, and I started to teach rock climbing. And then through working at different rock climbing walls, one of my favorite jobs was at what's called Rock Mill Climbing. It's here in Ohio. And they have a bouldering wall, they have a climbing wall. And through working there, they saw my interest in the human body and what I can do physically, and that I love to teach. And they gave me the opportunity to start to teach my own class, not rock climbing, whatever I wanted. So I started teaching hand balancing and strength and mobility through there, and started to get a little community there. And then it started to grow. And then I was very happy with everything that I was at. And then around that time, probably a little bit before that, I went to my first Ido Portal workshop and amazed at there, and then went to another Ido Portal workshop, and so on and so on. And now we're pretty much to where I am today.
Where do you see your path leading in the future, maybe in the next 2 years?
I think I will be in China, and hopefully I will have a group of people that want to train, that want to move together in China. And it could be 5 people, it could be 10 people, just a small group of dedicated students is what I really want.
So walk us through a day in the life of yourself at the Kung Fu camp from start to finish.
I went there with my girlfriend. We trained together, which was another awesome experience. We had to travel from the south of China to the middle of China, because that's where the Wudang Mountains are. We took about 3 trains, I think, and then a taxi to get there. When we got to the school, we had one of the coaches there meet us at like 11 p.m. because we got in late, and show us around and show us, here's where you sleep, here's where you do this. And then the first morning, we wake up about 5:30, 5:45, and at 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, they have Qigong class. And they teach different types of Qigong. The one that they really like to do is called 5-animal Qigong. And you can find this if you do a Google search, and you'll probably find the master that I trained under, because he's the most popular showing this type of Qigong in there. But we would do that for about an hour in the morning, and then we'd have breakfast at 7:30, so we'd have about a 30-minute break. And then we'd start our training at 8:20 in the morning, our morning training, 8:20 until 11:30. And during this time, we would work specifically on basic stances with a group, basic conditioning, and then we'd get into our certain form that we're learning, whatever that might be. Some people were doing weapons form, some people were doing open fist, this or that. Then after the AM training, we would have about probably 3 hours to eat lunch and do whatever we needed to do during that 3 hours. So what I would do during that 3 hours would be eat, and then I was trying to maintain all of my strength, which went terribly, by the way. I got really weak from doing that because I just didn't get enough volume in there. I even almost lost my one-arm handstand from training in there, because I just wasn't getting enough volume in the one-arm handstand at the time. And then after that break, we would go into our PM session, which started at about 2 o'clock, and that went until 5. And during the PM, we would specifically do kicks. So the morning was more focused towards stances. The afternoon was focused towards kicks. And they have their basic kicks, and then you can combine them. And we were learning this in the afternoon. And then after the kicks, you go back to whatever form you're doing. So the weapons, whatever it is. Then after 5, you'd have dinner. And then you'd be able to do whatever you want to do. And then at 7:30 about, or 8, we would have an hour of meditation. And the hour of meditation was honestly one of the most difficult parts for me personally, because we didn't get to slowly work up to an hour. We, day one, did an hour of meditation, an hour of sitting, which if somebody has never meditated before, that is a really long time to sit down. I've even seen some people, or heard some people, walk out of the class in the middle of the hour meditation because they just couldn't handle it anymore. But that was day in, day out, just like that. So that's about 7-8 hours a day that we'd be training just like that.
What kind of practice do you have at the moment, and how long is that?
So right now, for the past 3 months, I've increased the total demand of my training to about 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. About 30 minutes to an hour is my own programmed work, my own research, and then the other time is all done through Ido Portal. So I'm working a lot with improvisation, both in terms of the spine and locomotion. I'm working a lot with tactical work with my girlfriend as well. We do that together. I'm working with fear work as well, learning to research fear and understand what makes me fearful, what it is. I'm also doing coordination work. The movement quality, the water quality is something that I've been doing for about a year. No, not a year now, almost a year now. And I'm continuing to do that. And then I'm doing environmental practices. So right now I'm working on some swinging, some brachiating.
In terms of teaching, what is a teacher to you?
I make a distinction between a teacher and a coach. So a coach to me is someone that tells you to do something, shows you to do something, and you do it. The teacher teaches you how to do something. So they don't give you all of the information themselves. They help you to learn the information through different mediums. So I think a teacher is someone that does not give you everything in order for you to learn how to learn. And that's what I try to do with my students, both in person and online. So for example, online, most of the communication is done through videos, right? I have videos that they watch and they learn through there. In some videos, I have the text, I have the video, and I have audio. So they have 3 different opportunities to see all of the details. As they move down the course, maybe I take out the audio, maybe I take out the text. Maybe I only show one direction of the video so they can start to piece things together by themselves. And then in person, I do the same thing just in different ways. So maybe when I'm teaching, I won't use my voice during that entire teaching part. I will only show. Or maybe I will only use my voice and not show. Or maybe I will give a specific cue, but I'm looking for other students to find another cue out of it. So there's different ways to kind of elicit this learning that I try to pass down onto my students.
Well, thanks, Antonio, so much for coming on. It's been really good to meet you because I've, watched a lot of your content, and it's been awesome to have someone with a really unique kind of practice base and interest in China and the Kung Fu things that you've done. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Pat. It's an honor to be on. I don't feel like I deserve to be on a podcast, but it's nice to be able to talk and try to spread these ideas.